Hello and welcome back to Crypto Saving Experts, where we talk about the latest cryptocurrency news and take a look at the markets so that we know exactly what is happening. My name is Jess and we do these live streams every single weekday. If you are new here, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. We have a lot of news to discuss today. We're also going to be analysing the price of Bitcoin, the price of Ethereum, and taking a look at the chart which compares the two. First of all, let's take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin is currently down 1.7% within the last 24 hours to 30,521. We are also looking at Ethereum down 2.4% in the last 24 hours to 1,910. But we are going to be discussing that today, discussing what we think of this and seeing if this is going to last long or if we are due a nice move to the upside. If you want to stay tuned with that, make sure to stay tuned until the very end of today's stream, where we will be analysing the price of Bitcoin. First of all, let's take a look at this video that we have here of Vitalik Buterin. This is a really interesting one here. Hello everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in once again. Just checking through the live chat. Let's see what's going on here. So let me pull up this stream first of all. Now I hope you can all hear this correctly. Let's press go. Let's see if I can press go as expected. Here we go. Let's see if I can do this. Please let me know if you can hear this clearly.
That's online, and like for safety it has to be a multi-sig, and multi-sigs for the biggest reason why I personally am not like just staking all of my ETH and I'm instead like staking a fairly small portion is because if you stake your ETH, it has to be on like the keys that access it have to be public on some system that's online. And like for safety, it has to be a multi-sig, and multi-sigs for staking are still fairly difficult to set up. It gets complicated in a bunch of ways. Probably the biggest reason why I personally...
So we hear there that Vitalik Buterin does not stake his Ethereum, or the majority of his Ethereum, on the Ethereum network. Now we all know that to secure a network we need stakers. Proof of stake networks rely on stakers. And that is something that Vitalik has said he does not do for his own... I mean, he founded the network and he doesn't trust it enough. He doesn't think it's secure enough. Now we have heard from Charles Hoskinson on this matter. He has said, I had to listen to this a few times. I'm just at a loss for words. All of our ADA is staked. Guess what? That's how it's supposed to be for a properly designed proof of stake protocol. How can you make a network, transition it to proof of stake, and then say, oh, I don't really trust that? If you're supporting the network, you're not really doing something that meets my security standards. Absolutely insane to hear that from Vitalik Buterin himself. Definitely something that he needs to improve upon if he has such a strong stance on that. Something we all need to keep an eye on there. And it's shocking for that to come out so much further down the line when we saw the merge September 2022, I believe. And now it's coming out that he doesn't even trust it himself. Absolutely bizarre news there. Before we continue today's stream, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. And as I said, we go live every single day at around 11 or 12 a.m. BST time. So make sure to tune in and stay up to date with what's going on in the latest cryptocurrency news. Let's see what else is going on in the news today. Let's move on to the next article here. So we have next, let's see if we can set this all up correctly. Next, we are talking about what Cameron Winklevoss has got to say. So Cameron Winklevoss has accused DCG's Silbert of fraud and proposes $1.465 billion as a final offer. So let's explain this. A lot of you that were on listening to these live streams November, December last year probably are up to date with this story. What happens is Gemini is a cryptocurrency exchange founded by the Winklevoss twins. And Gemini is quite a popular cryptocurrency exchange, especially in the US. One of the most trusted centralized cryptocurrency exchanges, I would say. And they had an earn feature. You could deposit your tokens into Gemini and you could earn interest on those tokens. Now, the way in which you were generating interest is from Gemini lending tokens to a company called Genesis. Now, Genesis has parent company company DCG. And Genesis filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they had a loan from Gemini. So Gemini was in this sticky situation where it had all of its users staking on their platform, expecting interest, but Gemini then had loaned those funds to Genesis, and Genesis had said, no, we've got no funds left, we're filing for bankruptcy. So that caused a massive problem there, and Gemini was trying to work with DCG, the parent company of Genesis, to sort this out and try and come to an agreement on this. But now we have seen Cameron Winklevoss accuse DCG's Gary Silbert of fraud. So let's take a look at this article a little bit more and see what's happening here. So, the stalemate between the Gemini crypto exchange and Genesis Global over the $1.2 billion in customer assets locked at the latter company has escalated to a new level when Cameron Winklevoss penned an open letter to Silbert accusing him of fraud. Now, none of this has really happened behind closed doors. It's been a pretty transparent process. When this first happened, when Genesis first filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, there were open letters being posted on Twitter. There was quite a couple. So we've seen here what's been happening for us all to see, essentially. The Winklevoss twins have not kept this private. And we can see here that now they've penned an open letter accusing him of fraud. So you can see here that it is on Twitter. I will post the link to that in today's stream if anybody wants to have a look there. So what we can see here is within the 3-page letter on Twitter, it began with him pointing out that it had been 229 days since Genesis halted withdrawals and 174 days since his last open letter to Mr. Silbert. So he reminded him that he controlled DCG, the parent company of Genesis Global. And Mr. Winklevoss went on to accuse DCG, its employees and its subsidiaries of fraud. So Cameron Winklevoss has said here, as you well know, the DCG enterprise has engaged in fraudulent behaviour, including the multiple false and misleading statements you and your employees and DCG companies conspired to make to creditors in order to hide the insolvency and financial health of DCG. He's also said, you have never had any intention of doing the right thing and taking responsibilities for the mess that you, your companies and your employees created with your reckless and fraudulent behaviour. So now, Cameron Winklevoss is looking to sue DCG and Barry Silbert if he does not accept a final offer of $1.465 billion. Now, what's happening here is Cameron Winklevoss, the Winklevoss twins and Gemini have that loan to Genesis. Genesis are trying to, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so this doesn't mean they're putting their hands up and saying this is over. Instead, what they're doing is they're trying to restructure their finances. So when they're restructuring their finances, they're trying to pay out any loans that they have. Now, Genesis have yet to be repaid its loan that it is yet to repay its loan to Gemini, the cryptocurrency exchange, and Winklevoss twins have made a final offer here to come to some sort of agreement so they can get at least a portion of those funds back, because it's causing some problems for them. They've got a massive hole in their balance sheet now. We can see here that the Winklevoss has said that Barry Silbert has been playing games by dragging out a resolution that has cost over $100 million in professional fees, and he said enough is enough. To that end, attached is a best and final offer. If you don't agree to that deal by 4 p.m. ET on July 6th, we will proceed with the following steps. And they've said they will file a lawsuit against DCG and Barry Silbert. They will file a turnover motion demanding the Genesis Special Committee fulfill their fiduciary duties by filing a turnover motion on or before the 7th of July, and these two other conditions there as well. But what we can see here again is the Winklevoss twins being transparent. They're doing all of this publicly on Twitter, so that we can all see this all unfold in real time. Now, he's got until 4 p.m. ET tomorrow to respond to this and agree to this final offer. Otherwise, all of these other 4 conditions will come into effect. So we will be staying up to date on this story. It's a massive story there, and we will be making sure we can stay up to date on what's going on. It should be an interesting one there. Let's continue with the next piece of news here and see what else is going on. Before we do, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button. And don't forget to tune in every single weekday. Continuing here, we have the next story of the day, which is Mark Cuban tells the SEC to learn from Japan on crypto regulation. So you should read on how Japan deals with regulation, says Mark Cuban. Now, Mark Cuban has again blasted the SEC for choosing to regulate cryptocurrency by litigation. Cuban argues that the SEC chose the wrong path in regulating crypto. What's happened is the regulators have got incredibly scared since FTX collapsed in November last year, and they've tried to heavily regulate the industry incredibly quickly. And when they've done that, they've not provided any clarity, they've not provided any transparency. What they've done is regulate by enforcement. They've done lawsuit after lawsuit trying to fire down the cryptocurrency industry rather than creating a framework and making sure everybody abides to it. So there's been massive problems with the way they've been doing this. We can see here that Mark Cuban has said you should read up on how Japan deals with regulation. If the USA SEC had followed their example by setting clear regulations that required the separation of customer and business funds and clear wallet requirements, no one here would have lost money on FTX. Massive point there. So to prevent a case like FTX, Cuban said regulators should set bright line investor protection regulations like Japan, detailing the protections required and registration requirements to confirm adherence. As we keep saying, if we have a piece of framework that we can all abide by, the cryptocurrency industry isn't trying to be this unregulated Wild West. We don't want to see FTX happen again. It ruins our reputation. When FTX was happening, it was in the mainstream media. People that I know that don't know anything about cryptocurrency were coming up to me and were saying, like as if their point had been proven that cryptocurrency was a scam. Like, people were jumping onto this case with FTX and using it as a reason to not like cryptocurrency. That's not what us people in cryptocurrency want to see or hear. We want to build an industry that people are intrigued by and want to get involved in to help drive adoption. If we have things like FTX, it does not happen. So when we see things like FTX, we don't want it. And the regulators are meant to be in there to protect us from these things. They're meant to be able to see this and say, FTX aren't operating in a proper manner, we need to sort this out. So we do want some sort of regulation in the space. We want investors to be protected in this way, but we need that regulation to be clear and to be transparent and not to be enforced by just firing out lawsuits left, right and centre like the SEC have seemed to be doing. So we can see here, Mark Cuban has said the SEC was arrogant in thinking that its framework covered every possible situation. So it's near impossible to determine which tokens are securities. We've spoken about this before. We used the Howey test that was created in 1946 to determine whether an asset is a security or a commodity. If it's a security, it's regulated by the SEC. And right now, the clarification for digital assets does not work. It is not clear. So that's a massive problem that we are still seeing in the industry there. Let's continue with the next piece of news here and see what else is going on. Before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification button so you don't miss the latest cryptocurrency news. Let's make sure everything is working perfectly here. So let's move on to the next one here. We also have on today's news, we have crypto exchanges in South Africa have until the 30th of November to apply for licenses. So South Africa's Financial Sector Conduct Authority has given a 30th of November deadline for crypto exchanges to apply for operational licensing or risk enforcement actions such as closure or monetary fines. So South Africa are on their way to regulating centralized exchanges in the best way they can see, and that is by trying to get them all to regulate themselves by the 30th of November. This is following, again, FTX's collapse. We've seen a lot of regulators step up and say, we're going to try and regulate the industry a little bit more following FTX because it did hurt a lot of investors that use the platform. But we can see here, one of Africa's largest economies, South Africa, is pushing its guidelines to assist in streamlining the crypto industry within its borders. So they require licenses from the FSCA, and South Africa has been at the centre of several of the world's largest crypto scams there. So they are trying to filter this out of the region, essentially. Whether this will help or not is something that we will see in time. Let's continue with the next one here. Before we do, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification notification button. We have here the Committee of MPs urges Canadian government to nurture the blockchain industry. So a group of 30 Canadian members of Parliament have compiled a report to convince the government of the benefits of blockchain adoption in Canada. This is something we're seeing more and more of. We are seeing people in Parliament all across the world stepping up and saying we need to be paying more attention to this technology. We can't continue to ignore this. Bitcoin has been around for 12 years now. And it just keeps getting, well, no, not 12 years, 15 years, 14 years. And everybody's tried to ignore it, but it's come to the point now where people are saying, look, we need to look at this and we need to take advantage of this. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind. It's a massive step there in Canada. Whether they will listen and start to try and adopt the technology a little bit more is another matter. We can see here the FIS CBDC strategy ahead. So privacy will be key for a digital pound. So in an emailed statement sent to the block, FIC central bank digital currency strategy said that the digital pound would prioritize privacy. So let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Let me know what you think in the chat today of central bank digital currencies. I know this causes a massive divide in the cryptocurrency industry, so I'd like to hear your view on this. So in this woman's view, I should say, girl. So Julia Demidova has said, CBDCs can allow central banks and regulators to achieve higher transparency and visibility of transactions while maintaining an individual's privacy. Now, there are benefits to central bank digital currencies, and we can all see that. If central bank digital currencies are run on a blockchain, it would educate everybody on how cryptocurrency works and on how Bitcoin works, so it could massively drive adoption. But there are also some big flaws with CBDCs, and a lot of people are veering away from the idea and are outright refusing to use them if they are implemented. So if you are interested in that story, make sure to go to cryptosavingexpert.com. I will send you the link to that in today's stream. Let's continue with today's news. We've got Kyle Davis cites Karma implanted denotes on OPNX earnings to 3 Arrows Capital creditors. We've got a lot of stories today following the problems that occurred in 2022. So in a recent Twitter space, Kyle Davis said that Mark Lamb and Suzu would donate some of their future earnings from the OPNX exchange to 3 Arrows Capital creditors. Davis added that it was part of good karma. After 3 Arrows Capital filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy, and one of its co-founders, Kyle Davis, was part of a Twitter Spaces interview on Monday, they discussed the sequence of events leading to the collapse of the hedge fund. Now, we can see here that they plan to donate some of the OPNX earnings to 3 Arrows Capital creditors, trying to get some good karma coming their way, trying to clean their name, essentially, and get themselves back in the business world there. Let's continue with the next article. Let's move on and see what else is going on. So, Ton Blockchain launches encrypted messenger app that could survive an apocalypse event. So Tom Foundation said the new encrypted messenger will reliably deliver messages even in the event of an apocalypse. The Tom Foundation, the non-commercial organization behind developing the open network blockchain, has launched an encrypted messaging feature for network users. So if you are interested in that, make sure to check out this article here. I will again drop that one in the chat. Let's continue to the next one there and see what else is going on here. We have Australian regulators search Binance offices amid ongoing derivatives investigation. Now, what's happening here is there's a worldwide issue between regulators and Binance. Binance is definitely in the limelight right now, getting all of the regulators looking very closely at them and scrutinizing them, trying to see if they are operating correctly in every single region. And what we are seeing here is there been massive problems in Australia. We've seen them have to delist pairs that include the Australian dollar. We've seen banks pulling away from the exchange, and we've seen massive discrepancies in the price in Binance Australia compared to its competitors in the region, because market makers have been moving off the exchange and because users have been dumping and moving and fleeing the exchange. So massive problems there. The best thing that can happen for Binance right now is the regulators see and look, turn around and say, look, we couldn't see any problems with this. But still, it would take a long time to build back that user base that it had prior to this problem. Let's see what's going on here. Jason Smith said this is going to drag on for months or years. That is something I definitely do agree with. This doesn't just go overnight. And what we are also seeing in America as well is we've got regulation and we've got problems with regulation and around cryptocurrency. We're seeing the regulators come after Binance, after Coinbase, and we're also seeing new cryptocurrency exchanges launch, like the EDX crypto exchange, which is backed by Wall Street giants. I think exchanges like that are going to have a pretty easy ride with regulation, specifically because of how many cryptocurrencies they're offering. That exchange is only offering Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin, but also because it's backed by Wall Street giants. So I think that those bigger exchanges backed by bigger companies will have an easier ride here, and it's just an attack at the cryptocurrency industry. But we'll keep an eye on that. So over $163 million in Bitcoin has been removed from the Luna Foundation Guard wallet. So following what's happened with Luna over the last year, we've seen them have a pretty empty movement, but now we've seen $163 million worth of Bitcoin being moved. So that's roughly 5,292 Bitcoin there. So let's take a look at this article here. It was reported on Wednesday, saying it's the largest of all funds transferred from the wallet over the past year. Per the report, the wallet in question was created in Jan 21, with which the CEO of Terraform Labs, Do Kwon, declared he would defend the price of Terra Classic. Now, obviously, we know how that has gone. And so this Terra Classic is actually Luna. It was renamed to Terra Classic because the blockchain split directions, and the original blockchain got changed to Terra Classic, and the new blockchain got changed to Luna. So what we can see here is the latest transfer essentially emptied the LFG wallet, and whether Kwon is behind the new anonymous wallet is uncertain, but digital assets cited experts who claimed it is likely that it is recently created personal wallet. So Do Kwon is sentenced to prison right now. We will be keeping updates on this. It seems that a lot of stories have been, FTX has got back in the news. Now Luna Foundation Guard are back in the news. It seems like we're revisiting stories from 6 months ago within the last couple of weeks. They've all come back into the headlines again. Very interesting what's going on there. Let's continue now. Let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin and see what's going on here. So if we take a look at this, you can see that we've been looking at this level of resistance here on the channel between $30,400 to $31,000. This is what we used as a level of resistance back in April this year on the daily chart. You can see we've been attacking this for a while. We did actually get a daily candle close above this level, and now it looks like we are coming back down to retest that. So I'm interested to see right now if we are going to manage to get a bounce of this previous level of resistance and zone of resistance and see some sort of support here and start to move forwards, or whether we are going to need a few more attacks at this to try and get a full breakthrough. But I'm keeping a close eye on that. Let's also take a look at the price of Ethereum right now and see how this is performing. So this is also seeing a slight move to the downside. We can see here that it has broken out of this descending triangle. We did see a confirmation bounce of this previous level of resistance here, so I'm definitely keeping a close eye on that, with that level being at 1,835 to 1,825. We have used it as a support now, so I'm expecting that to hold as a support once again, but I am keeping a close eye on that in the shorter time frames as well. We do have some sort of level of support here, so that is looking at around 1,892. So we're keeping a close eye on everything right now. Things are starting to heat up, things are starting to get interesting, but that is all we have for today's stream. So thank you very much for tuning in as always. Please don't forget to tune back in tomorrow at 11 a.m. BST time. Thank you very much for watching.